I got a brand new haircut, and I have 3 brand new Lenovo Legions for 2024 in front of me. This one on the left here is the 7i Pro. This is my model here. These two are review units. This is the 7i Slim for 2024. This is a 5i Pro for 2024. The purpose of this video is to look at these 3 different laptops, compare them in terms of form factor, performance, design, audio, all these different things, help you guys identify which one might be best suited for your needs, and help you guys determine which one is worth your money. Here's the lineup. So we have the 7i, which is the replacement for the 7i Slim from last year, basically the 7i Slim. Then we have the 5 Pro, 5i Pro here, and then we have the 7i Pro. So the 7i here is based on last year's 7i Slim, or AMD, so it'd just be 7 Slim. So the very, very premium laptop. The 7i Slim and 7 from AMD and Intel last year were my favorite laptop of the year last year. This one here is the 5 Pro. I did like the 5 Pro as well last year. The 5 Pro is definitely slightly more premium than the 5 Slim. That's just the way that they are. And then we jump up here to the 7 Pro. So in this case, it's the 7i Pro. I reviewed this last year. I did AMD and Intel as well. This is AMD's second from Halo laptop. So they do have the 9i, but the 9i is for a lot of people, I think, like unobtainable. You know, it's a very expensive laptop, super premium Halo. But I think a lot of people, when they're buying into, you know, the gaming behemoth, they're going to buy into the 7i Pro here. This one here is going to be geared a little bit more towards portability. It's a little bit thinner than the other two, a little bit lighter than the other two. So if portability is important to you, but you still want 16 inches, the 7i here is going to be key for you. So you may look at this and think like this is some massive gaming laptop. Not really. I mean, it has a massive screen, but it's basically the same as a MacBook 16-inch, which people praise for being like portable and slim. These two here are slightly thicker. They're still not behemoth thickness style laptops, the 5 Pro and the 7 Pro. They're not like behemoth thickness laptops like some brands out there. They actually do focus on keeping this relatively thin, all things considered, especially for the hardware that's inside, as well as the actual performance of them, the cooling and all that as well. So they did a little bit of a tweak this year on the 7. I'm going to call the 7 Slim just for now, but it's just basically called the 7i. So the 7i Slim this year, they moved the I/O. So you can see here that on the Pro, it has a bunch of I/O there on the butt, right, on the back there. That's a very traditional Lenovo Legion thing. You can actually see it over here as well. The 7i here changes from last year. So the 7i Slim last year did have that kind of back I/O all the way along. They changed it on this one here, and it has basically your power and your HDMI there. You don't lose any ports, by the way. They just put a couple on each side there. So you don't lose a bunch of ports or anything like that, but they did move that out. They talk about cooling here. I think maybe that might be a thing, but what I think is it has to do with the RAM upgrade. You'll see that later when I talk about it, but they did allow to put in 2 SODIMM sticks in here, and I think they just needed to tweak the I/O locations and that to get it in such a thin little chassis. That's my theory, but you can see here that the actual hinge on the 7 Slim here has that full chassis style hinge there. This one here has 1, 2, 1, 2, just a little bit of a difference there. So there's actually 1 hinge point there, 1 hinge point there. This one has 2 and 2. I don't know which one's better or worse. I don't know. Neither of them are overly wobbly. I guess this is actually slightly less wobbly. Maybe because it's got a double hinge, whereas the 7 has a single hinge. That's interesting. Let's bring in the 5 to do a comparison and see if that theory is true. Yeah. So the double hinge here, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, does allow for slightly more lid stability than 1 and 1. Interesting. I prefer the aesthetic of this bar here, but it does look like the 2 and 2 adds a little bit more stability on the hinge, which does make sense. I mean, more contact points. You can see here that the actual top-down perspective on these laptops are all the same, right? They're all the same. All of them are basically the same form factor from the top. So you see there, if we look at those laptops there, they're all going to be basically the same from a top-down shot. It's like a pancake O Legions we got here. However, there is a difference in thickness here, right? A fair bit of thickness there, vertical height there, quite a bit, and at the back there. So it is several millimeters thicker, this laptop here. Even the butt back there is a little bit higher too. So it is definitely a little bit thinner. It's also lighter. You'll see when we get to that point there. We'll come here and we'll bring it from the front so you can actually see. It's hard to see on camera. This stuff never comes across well on camera, but I don't know if you can see that there. It's obviously slimmer. It's very evident. If you look at that corner there, you can see it's definitely slimmer. Right, I don't know how evident that is, but to me it's very obvious. A few millimeters thinner, right? This one has a little bit more thickness to there. None of them are massive, right? Like the 7 Pro here is not a super thick laptop. Lenovo does a very good job of keeping these Legions relatively thin. We'll bring in the 5 Pro, and this is going to be very, very, very similar to the 7 Pro. You can see there on the back. Same I/O placement, a little bit different vent. This is like, it's fine. The material there, this, I guess it's a little bit more premium of a plastic, but it is what it is. They're basically exactly the same. I/Os, you can see that there. These ones have hexagons, and these ones have not hexagons. Whatever. All right, not a big difference there. That side there, basically identical. And the front is identical. Right? So they're basically the same form factor. So if you looked at like a CAD style drawing of these here, they would be like basically the same. Now the color of these laptops is actually ever so slightly different. You can see that there. Let's see if we can get some good coloration there. Right? This year's model of the 7 is slightly darker than the 5. When we open it up, you'll notice that it's even more different. One other thing you can see here, fingerprints. Obviously darker is going to show fingerprints more than white. This one I've actually wiped the lids down on these. This one I haven't. I guess if you get the right angle, you can see some fingerprints, maybe. Right, maybe. Can you see that? I think I can. Yeah, there's one there. Obviously the white's not going to show fingerprints, unless I guess you have Cheetos in your hands. That will show it. Let's open them up though. You can see the difference here. So 7, 5. So there is a tiny little bit of a difference in the color between these. So this is like a dark charcoal. It's not black, right? Definitely not black, but it's like a dark charcoal. And you can tell the difference between this has the same keys as this. They're like a black, almost black, not quite black, but a very, very dark charcoal color, almost black. Same as that there. This is basically a black keyboard. You can see that there. This is a black keyboard there. Same exact keyboards, like identical, literally. But you can see here there's more contrast, right? Black keyboard, dark gunmetal type material. Not shiny gunmetal, but like a matte gunmetal. And then this is a dark kind of charcoal. Very, very dark charcoal. The height of them is basically going to be more or less the same. Actually, the 5 is ever so slightly thicker, which is interesting. Right? Just the tiniest little bit thicker there, a little bit higher. And it's not just that bump there. The actual whole laptop is ever so slightly thicker. The front is the same, right? I run my finger across that. That's the same. But here, this is thicker. Now, this uses a vapor chamber. Even though it has a 4090 and a beefier CPU, it has a vapor chamber. This does not have a vapor chamber. That makes sense, right? Vapor chamber allows it to basically be thinner. So now that that's all compared there, the clicks, exactly the same. Keyboard, identical. Okay, so I'm going to be able to close this now because it's exactly the same. They will be, the 5 Pro and the 7 Pro are exactly the same other than a little bit of coloration difference. But let's bring in the 7 here, which is the stand-in for last year's 7 Slim. Obviously, it's a white keyboard. I mean, that's no brainer. I don't need to go over people's colors, I don't think, or all the colors and the lack of the colors. But you can see here, much thinner, right? Considerably thinner there, like several millimeters thinner there. And then when you go to the back there, it actually is not as dramatic, but it's still thicker. So this is thicker at the back for sure, and much thicker at the front there. So considerably thicker at the front and the middle, and then the back, it's also a little bit thicker, but it's the front where this is a thick boy in here. Whereas the Slim, or just the 7, I guess I'll call it. I'm going to keep calling it that by accident. It doesn't. Trackpad on here is plastic, nice and smooth, very precise, etc. This has a glass trackpad. Beautiful glass trackpad when you come from the chassis over here. If you haven't used a glass trackpad, you won't really know what I'm talking about. But glass trackpads do make a difference. They're just very smooth, nice to the touch. The fingers run over them just better. They don't wear down as much. Like you won't get as much eventually over time, your finger oils and like just friction will wear this down much faster than this here because this has a plate underneath and has a piece of glass on top, much more resistant. Click of them here. The 7 wins. The 7 normal here wins, 7i wins over the 7 Pro. It's a more premium laptop. You're going to see this trend kind of go through where the 7i Pro is by far the most performant, like it will obliterate both of these laptops in raw performance. I mean, it's got a 4090 as well, but even if you put in a 4070 in here and this processor and that, it's just a thicker laptop with more cooling, it will outperform the two of them. But in terms of premiumness, the 7 Slim, just like last year, is more premium. No biometric login on either of these here. Yes, biometric login, fingerprint over there. There's no facial unlock on either of them, but you do get that fingerprint unlock there as well. There's just those little things that they put into the 7 here, or the 7 Slim, to make it a little bit nicer. Obviously, I prefer the look of this being a white keyboard, but it's not just that. So this here, right, plastic chassis, these are the same with this here, so there's no point in doing both of them, but you can see that little bit of a flex there. Lid is metal. Here, metal, metal, metal. This is an all metal chassis on the 7. This is not. This is a mix of plastic and metal. So you get a little bit more keyboard flex. Not a lot compared to some laptops, right? Not going to be crazy keyboard flex or anything like that, but you know, it is plastic. And then this is just metal, right? Metal. Zero keyboard flex. Like none. Like I could pound on this thing and you might get a little bit of keyboard flex, but that's why it's just a very sturdy chassis. If you actually pick up the laptop here and you feel it in your hand, it's a big, solid MacBook Pro feeling laptop, all metal chassis. Now the 5 here on the right, plastic here, right? Actually surprisingly little keyboard flex for being plastic, right? But this is plastic here. So it has metal lid, plastic here, plastic bottom. Good plastic bottom, but plastic bottom, right? And then when you pick up the laptop itself, nice and sturdy, no real flex on it. Heavy laptop, no real flex on it. This one here, plastic top, just like that, plastic, plastic. These feel exactly the same. There's no difference between them. Metal lid, metal bottom, right? So the 7 Pro gets a metal bottom, whereas the 5 Pro gets a plastic bottom. Otherwise, they're the same. Same type of lid, same keyboard deck. This one here, like the 7 Pro, metal top, metal bottom. The difference here, though, metal keyboard deck. So the actual deck here is metal. All of them feel premium. The 5 Pro feels premium, just not quite as premium as the 7 Pro, which is very premium, but doesn't feel just not quite as premium as the 7i, or 7i Slim, I guess you can call it last year. So if you're comparing this, it'd be the 7i Slim from last year. This year it's just called the 7i. This is the most premium laptop in the Legion lineup, period. Actually, I'm going to record this because there is a variance in ease of opening the laptop. The 5 Pro is the kind of mid-range, I guess I'd say. You can go up here. That's normally pushed. I've already opened it up. You got to come in here. Kind of a pain, right? So I pull it off camera. Once that's in, the little pick, you can basically just pull it up. And it's off. This one is hard to get into, actually. You can see here that on the 5 Pro here, 7 normal, there's no LED strip. On the 7i Pro, there's an LED strip here. So you're going to get downfiring LED on the 7i Pro, like the 9i Pro. When you're trying to get into the laptop as well, this one here, it's kind of flush. It's easy to get into. This one here has a little bit of like an overhang. Much harder to get into. So I have to pull this off camera again. So this one I actually consider hard to get into. Not like, you're not going to feel like you're going to break it, but it is harder to get into. So you have to come in here. This goes on top of the LED, not underneath. Normally what I do now is I kind of just hold it, because you actually need to run the pick all the way around because it's metal. This one's plastic. It's like flexy. Once you get that in, you can just pull it up. This is metal, so you can't just really pull on it that easily. It's like firm, which is, I guess, a good thing, right? You can kind of do that. Feels a little tight. So normally what I do if I feel like a little tight there, it's because I don't want to break I come over here, slide that along there. Once I'm in there, I just give it a little twist. And then we're in. So this one here, you basically, what I do is I just kind of give it a little bit of torque on the chassis there. You can see it gives you that. I have I guess a little bit of fingernails, but you can pull on that. If you don't have fingernails, you can just go like that with this little guitar pick. Once that's in, you're basically cooking, right? Super easy to get the 7 off. So here are the three laptops. This is going to be a very difficult shot for me to take because I have three fairly large laptops. But you can see here that there is a heatsink on the 5 Pro on both of the NVMe's. On the 7 Pro, there are heatsinks on both of the NVMe's. And then on the 7 Not Pro, just the normal 7, there's no heatsink on the NVMe's. It's a thinner laptop. They just don't have room for that. I don't necessarily think it's a cost saving. I mean, maybe, but a few cents here and there probably won't break anything. But, you know, these are much thicker laptops, so there's room for it. Here there isn't. So they use the heatsink, the thermal pad on the bottom of the laptop here, right? So you get that thermal pad there so that the SSDs will basically off heat into those thermal pads into this giant piece of metal. So this will work as a heat sink and they'll stay nice and cool. Other than that, it's fine. Other things we can look at here. So batteries. 99 watt hour battery on the 7 Pro. 99 watt hour battery on the 7i. Huge battery. 80 watt hours on the 5 Pro. That might actually affect battery life a little bit. If it's something you care about, that might make a difference for you. You can see here this laptop is much thicker. The actual physical heatsink is much thicker than the 7. Let's do a comparison here with these two 7s. We'll bring in the 5 after. Dual RAM slots. Last year this only had 1, so that's an upgrade. You go from 1 up to 2. Last year this was always 2, so there was no difference there. NVMe, Wi-Fi, NVMe, Wi-Fi. 7 style speaker. You'll see here, this has a nice rectangular speaker there. We'll get to the audio portion, but last year, the 7 Pro had the best of the Legion for speakers, and then the 7 Slim had the second best, and then the 5 was way behind. But that's, you know, this is what it is. But I typically found that these were a little bit better. It could just be the positioning of them. But I think they're slightly just more robust speakers overall. The fans are going to be more robust as well on the 7. You can see on the right there, you get that dual fan style. It's a thicker fan. The actual fan's Z height is higher. This might actually be a more higher diameter fan, maybe. Could just be part of it is hidden underneath here. It's hard to tell. But this fan here, you know, doesn't have that dual kind of fan where there's dual fins on that there. If that matters, I don't know really what difference that makes. I'm not an engineer. One big difference here though, 3 heat pipe for cooling shared between the two. So you have so you have your CPU and GPU under there. 3 heat pipes running to the left there, 2 heat pipes on the right. So my guess would be CPU, GPU. Looks good. A little bit of VRM cooling over there. This one here has a vapor chamber, so that's going to be more enhanced there. That's going to be also better than the 5 Pro. The 5 Pro also uses heat pump style. So let's do this here because obviously the vapor chamber is its own thing. 3 heat pipes, 2 over there, nice big fan. This one here uses the same fan style as the 7 Pro underneath, right? You get more, also 3, so you get 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. The VRM has a little bit more robustness over here. I don't know if it's cooler, I don't really know. And then 2 over here. So actually very similar. In terms of the heat pipage, looks quite similar between the two of them. However, the fans themselves seem to be a little bit more robust. Here it has that dual kickback style where you get the fins coming in. Again, that might be just for wind turbulence. Maybe it might get rid of the noise. I don't really find that they're any noisier, but maybe it moves more air. Could just be a turbulence thing. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not a aerodynamic engineer when it comes to cooling solutions, but that's the difference there. They're going to run relatively similar in terms of cooling. We'll see when we get to that part there. I do expect this one to run slightly cooler because of the fans probably mainly, but we'll have to see when we get to that point. It's a little bit hard to compare because this is a 4060, this has a 4070. This has a weaker CPU, this is a stronger CPU, so we'll have to do a comparison there, unfortunately. It's just the way that it is, but we can do a bit of extrapolation. And then if we actually look at the 7 here versus the 5 Pro, I mean, one of the advantages of the 7 Pro is you can get better cooling. So this has a vapor chamber on it. This is a big vapor chamber here. This has a 4090 under it and a 14900HX. This also has a 14900HX. So you'll see the difference between this robust cooling and this one here. When we do the Cinebench there, we'll see which one runs cooler. A 3 heat pipe setup or a vapor chamber. In theory, this should run cooler. 3 heat pipe over here with fans. PTM 7950, that's Honeywell. It's not going to be the same as thermal paste. So do not take off this here or on the 7 over there and put on thermal paste. Don't do it because it's going to be inferior to what comes on it, which is Honeywell PTM. This runs much more effectively than thermal paste. So don't take this off and put on thermal paste. If you do want to take this off for some reason, which you should probably contact a professional unless you know what you're doing, you do want to put on PTM 7950. That's just something to be aware of. This one here has PTM 7950 on one of them, the CPU, and the GPU has liquid metal. So don't take this off at all. That's my little rundown there. The 5i Pro versus the 7i Pro. Obviously the 7i Pro has some advantages in terms of having a bigger battery and better cooling there as well. RAM is going to be upgradable on both of them. No big deal there. You know, the speakers on the 7 are generally going to be way better than the 5. You can see these have these little Peasley speakers. They're passable. I mean, they play music and they produce sound. They're not tinny or rattly in general. I haven't tested them yet. Realistically, these speakers are just going to absolutely pale in comparison to the ones on the 7, either of the 7s. These are vastly better speakers. So that's one of the advantages of going from 5 to 7. You get better speakers. That's a big difference there. If you go from the 5 Pro to the 7 Pro, specifically with the 4090, at least you get vapor chamber cooling, which is going to be a big upgrade. Otherwise, you know, this is the same here. So you get the same upgradability. Dual SODIMM on both, same upgradability. Dual NVMe on them, same upgradability. Wi-Fi, same upgradability. 80 watt-hour battery, 99 watt-hour battery, so 20% more battery. Better speakers, inferior speakers, better cooling, inferior cooling. By no means does that make this a write-off. It's not going to be a write-off. It's still a fantastic laptop. The next important thing to check here is the actual chargers, because they vary wildly. Now, there might be a little bit of a difference between which GPU you get, but you can see here that the 7i Pro with the 4090 and the 13900HX, by far the most powerful of these, has a tiny little thing. So it's 330 watts, but it's relatively small. Here's the 7i, so the Slim basically. It's a considerably lower wattage charger, but you know, it's around the same size, maybe a tiny little bit smaller. This is a much higher wattage charger though, so they're doing a very good job with the 7i there, keeping that charger down. And then here comes the meme one. The 5 Pro just comes in with this behemoth charger, so that's funny. You can see that there. So yeah, 300 watts. Despite the fact that it's 300 watts, it's going to be basically the biggest, even though this is 330 watts, it's smaller. 897 on the 5 Pro, 872. Yeah, and this one's a little bit lighter there, 705, so by far the lightest in the... Okay, now we'll check the system weight. So the 7i, Slim Boy, 2,294, so 2,300 grams. It's about 5 pounds, almost on the dot, very close to it. Here's the 5 Pro, 2,454, so that's heavier. That's over 5 pounds. That's going to be more like 5.4 pounds. 2,656. Okay, so let's have a look at the screens here. I'm going to kill off this light here. All three laptops have different screen offerings. The 5i Pro has 3 screens. They're all 1600p. However, there are different brightnesses and color range. So the lowest one, which I have here on this laptop, is a 350 nit screen. So not super bright, not dim either, kind of just right in the middle. 100% sRGB, so good colors, but not, you know, creator level, but still quite good. 165 hertz, so high refresh rate. They also have a 1600p 500 nit offering with the same color range. So it's 100% sRGB, but a little bit brighter, and a faster refresh rate, 240 hertz. And then they also have a 500 nit offering that has a 100% DCI-P3 color space. So it's going to be the best for creatives. Very, very bright, very, very good color space on the highest offering for this model here. The Legion 7i only has 2 screen offerings, 1600p, which I have here, 500 nits, nice and bright, 100% sRGB, so good colors, but not really creator level, but still good, and 240 hertz refresh rate. That's what I'd call the gamer screen for the 7i, the slim model here. Then they also have a 3.2K screen, 430 nits, a little bit dimmer, but still bright, 100% DCI-P3, so good color space for creatives, 165 hertz, still very high refresh rate, and then it does have the highest resolution of all 3 laptops here with 3.2K screen. That one I've actually shown off in another video where I did a ThinkBook 16p last year, and I compared it to the Legion. I actually compared these two exact screens, and I actually have a 16p video coming soon, which has this 3.2K screen. If you're a gamer, I mean, maybe you can go towards a 1600p screen because it's going to have a little bit better, so the 4060 or the 4070 will handle the 1600p a little bit better. But I mean, we do have a lot of DLSS that you can throw on a 3.2K screen, and it'll still look good at such a high resolution. So it's up to you. I prefer the 3.2K screen, but I can see the benefit of the 1600. And then we do have the Legion 7i Pro, which only has one screen offering, and it's basically the same as the highest end on the 5 Pro, which is the 1600p, 500 nit, 100% DCI-P3. So all of them have very good screens in all three tiers. It just depends which model you get and how you want to spec them out. That's the best screen, by far. Best colors, by far, on the 7. These both look good. Better blacks, better reds. May not show up on camera. This is a good screen. This is a good screen. This is a better screen. That's another video here. Not quite as obvious here when you have all these different colors on the screen, but this is the best screen. I don't know if my phone's going to pick it up. I don't know. The greens are way more vibrant here. The colors are more vibrant. The brightness on these are equal, to my eyes at least. This is the dimmest. This one has the best colors though. So it's quite literally, quality would go across that way in my opinion. Now, I'm comparing these screens and they're literally side by side. All of these are fantastic screens. The 5 Pro has a great screen. The 7i has a great screen. And the 7i Pro has a great screen. But the 7i Pro is the best screen. It just is. Okay, so now we'll go through one by one. Max volume here, so mind your headphones. We'll start with this over here. Okay, so it's kind of a no-brainer. Let's turn on the lights here. By far the worst, right in the middle, and the best. There's a big jump between this one and these two over here. The 5 Pro, the sound is okay. It's rich enough, I guess. It's okay. Not a lot of bass, low-end bass at all. It gets loud enough, I guess. There's no tinniness. It's clear. No tin can effect. So it's a good set of speakers, especially for a gaming laptop. It's fine. You're going to listen to it. You're going to be all right with it. Watching shows, whatever, playing games, you'll be fine. This is a nice experience, right? So you get a lot of low-end bass. That low-end bass really starts to fill out here. It's nice and rich. The music feels voluminous. You have nice clear volume. You have nice clear volume on this one. No tinniness all the way from the bottom all the way to the top. No tinniness at the top. Nice rich sound from the bottom all the way up to the top. It sounds very good, especially for a thin laptop. This is really nice. One of the better laptops you're going to use out there. And then this wins. The 7 Pro, like last year, is one of the best audio experiences you're going to get on a laptop, period, let alone a gaming laptop. Gaming laptops, at the top of my head, can't think of a better set of speakers on any gaming laptops. There's a couple Asus out there that also put out a lot of good sound as well, gaming laptops, and they're super high-end, like the 18-inch ones, but I still think this is richer. It's just such a nice audio sound on this laptop here. This is the type of speakers that you're going to like throw on a movie, and you're going to take off your headphones because you're going to want to watch it on this very rich, beautiful screen here, and you're going to want to listen to this amazing music that comes out of this. For games as well, you're going to get a lot of volume to a game, especially if you're playing games with music or explosions and boom, boom, boom kind of stuff. This will be a nice, rich experience. Okay, I know that I've talked about the keyboards, but I actually want to type on them real quick. So I'll do a typing test from left to right. I'll just kind of reach weirdly, but I'm so used to Legion, it's not going to make a difference. Okay, so easy enough to do. These feel basically exactly the same amount of flex. I don't know, they feel exactly the same. So no difference between the two of them. The keyboards feel exactly the same. The trackpads feel exactly the same. They're good. They're a solid, I don't know, 9 out of 10 rating. They're going to beat out really pretty much every other laptop you're going to buy, unless it's like, I guess, a Legion, really. Like maybe the Lenovo Yoga would be up there. Some of the very, very high-end ThinkPads would be like on the list. But in my opinion, my personal opinion from using a bazillion laptops over the years, the Lenovo Legions are the best keyboards you can get on the market. I enjoy typing on you. I enjoy typing on you. You're very nice to type on. But wow, this is an experience to type on here. So this would be, I would say, I was going to say it's the best keyboard that I've ever used. I would say it's tied for the best keyboard I've ever used. So the 2023 model of this has a slightly different texture. This is like a ceramic feeling to it. Last year it was like a metallic feeling like this, right? Not plastic like these keys, but it had that, you know, metallic lid type feel. It was the whole thing was metallic. This time it's ceramic. I think that's going to be personal preference. The actual keyboard is exceptionally snappy, very snappy, good key travel. The actual physical keys aren't super tall or anything, keycaps, but there's no wobble. They're very stable. They have a lot of travel on them, like a lot of travel on them, and zero keyboard flex here. Way better than a MacBook. I don't know why people think MacBooks have nice keyboards. They don't. They're horrible. They're like chiclets and there's no travel on them. They're garbage. The chassis feel nice, but this has the rigidity of a MacBook Pro in the chassis here. The keyboard is outstanding to type on. It's so snappy. I'm also used to them, which would be maybe a little bit of an edge there. You are going to want to type on it. You're not going to find a keyboard that's better. You might find keyboards that are more preferentially towards you. Like maybe last year you don't like the ceramic as much, so you prefer the last year's one, but this is like S-tier keyboard. Unbelievably nice to type on. We can look at some performance numbers here. On the far right, we have the 7i Pro. You can see the 14900HX is giving a score of approximately 27,800 or so around 28,000 over average runs. And then you can see in the middle there, the exact same CPU in the thinner 7i, Slim as I'll call it, actually is giving a significantly lower score, so 24,000 or so. So the exact same CPU in a thinner chassis, surprise, surprise, is going to give you actually a lower score. On the far left there, interestingly, the 5i Pro with the i7 is actually getting basically the exact same score, slightly higher technically than the 7i. So this is why I often tell people that you don't necessarily want to just throw the beefiest CPU, especially for Intel, inside of a thin laptop, because in a lot of cases, you're not going to get the performance that you get in a much thicker laptop, of course, but in many cases, you're actually going to get nerfed performance because of the heat. In a thinner chassis like the 7i, I often push people towards getting the i5 or the i7 processor if you're going with Intel, because really you're going to get very similar performance overall, and you're going to save yourself some money. Looking at some game footage here, I went back and looked at all my different games, and it'll give some summaries here to just basically summarize the differences here. So the first shot here is the 5 Pro. You can see here that it has a 4060 and an i7. You're getting around 60 on average with these settings here, and 30 low, so pretty good. And then if we jump over to the 7i, the slimmer model, you can see that we're getting roughly the same performance. And what's interesting here is this is the i9 processor and the 4070, so it has one step up in terms of the processor and one step up in terms of the GPU, yet the performance is technically the same, if not slightly lower than the 5 Pro. So, I mean, obviously the thicker chassis and the improved cooling on the 5 Pro and potentially better power profile are giving it a slight edge over this technically better equipped 7i Slim or 7i slimmer model. So often what I recommend from this is that if you're getting your slimmer model, 7i Slim here, for example, I probably push people more towards the 4060 and an i7, because you're not going to get a huge performance boost stepping it up anyways, and you're just going to be spending more money. And then moving between the two Pro models, I mean, there's going to be a considerable difference here, because one of them is a 4090, one of them is a 4060, so considerable difference here, but that's kind of what I'm pointing out here. What does your money get you? So the first scene here is in Horizon Forbidden West here. I just kind of ran through, just grabbed some screenshots here and there. You can see here that we're getting around 50 or 60 on average or so on the setting here. Quality DLSS on high, performance mode, so good performance overall. And then when we jump over to the Pro, we actually have taken off scaling, so no scaling. So we went from DLSS to no DLSS, and from high to very high, and even so we're getting an extra 20 frames or 25 frames or so considerably more capable. Obviously going from a 4060 up to a 4090, you're going to be getting considerably more power.
And then we'll look at some resolution differences here. So on the 5 Pro, we can see here that 1600p quality DLSS on Ultra performance mode. In Baldur's Gate, we're going to get around 75 FPS or so, 36 low, so pretty good, all things considered, for 1600p, which is quality DLSS on the 5 Pro. And then when we jump to the 7 Pro, the exact same settings, but now we're at 4K. So it's considerably higher resolution, and we're at 117 FPS. So we've actually increased the resolution from 1600p up to 4K, so a massive increase in resolution. And even though we've done that, we've actually increased our performance by about 40 or 45, even 50 FPS overall, so considerably more powerful. But what I would take away from this is that all of the laptops are very capable. Obviously, the slimmest one is going to be slightly nerfed due to that thermal constraint and power constraint. The 5 Pro is kind of a really nice middle ground. And then obviously, if you get the 7i Pro with the 4090, you're going to get incredibly high performance, but you are going to, of course, pay for it.
Okay, so I spent all day, well into the early mornings, testing these laptops, just going over the reviews. I did some benchmarks. I haven't done full dedicated reviews on these, but I did game testing. I did Cinebench. I did TimeSpy, I did everything, listen to their audios, all these type of things. And I do have experience with them, of course, last year and the year before. But what's my takeaway here? Well, if you need the best performance, you get the 7i Pro here. It has 4080, 4090 option. If you get the 4090 here specifically, you're going to get that nice vapor chamber, liquid metal cooling. The performance is outstanding. I mean, you're going to get desktop level performance, high level desktop level performance on a fairly thin laptop over here. They're not exactly cheap, but they're also not exactly expensive compared to the competition. You can actually get these for a respectable price. I only paid about $3,600 on this here, tax in Canadian. This laptop's only been out for, I don't know, a couple weeks here. And it's a flagship option, 4090, 14900HX. What more do you want, right? And I mean, everything about it, there's no real problems with the laptop. It's outstanding. If you don't want to spend that kind of money, or if you're going with a 4060 or 4070, just go over here. Get into the 5 Pro. The 5 Pro, yeah, you lose a little bit, like you don't have, the metal bottom on it. You don't get a vapor chamber, but you don't need a vapor chamber on a 4070 anyways, so I mean, it's fine. Here you do get, this one here specifically has the i5 processor. It's still very, very performant here. And you're going to save a lot of money going with the 5 Pro. They're close enough here that these two are close enough here that, chassis-wise, they're really, really similar. You do lose some of the niceties. The screen on this is not quite as nice, but it's still a very nice screen. The speakers are nowhere near as nice. This has like S-tier speakers. This has like B-tier speakers. Like, they're fine, I guess. They are speakers. So, you're paying for things like that over here. Metal bottom, obviously the superior cooling. But otherwise, I mean, if you look at the internals of this, the performance of this laptop, it's still outstanding. The 7i here is my personal favorite. You don't get the same performance, though. So this has a 14900HX. This has a 14900HX. This CPU here actually performs worse than the i5 over there. Why is that? It's thermodynamics. This is a much thinner laptop. The cooling is not as beefed up. So it is an i9, but it performs basically the same as the i7 over here. This is the i7 here. So the i7 here in a 5 Pro performs basically the same as the i9 over here. This one over here, this i9, vastly outperforms both of them, obviously. The performance on them is basically going to be highest, medium, and then lowest. But they're all very good performing, right? The CPU on here still performs exceptionally well. The gaming performance on this laptop is still exceptionally good. It doesn't run super hot, even despite the fact that it's thin. It's not dumping 140 watts into the 4070 on this thing, so it's good to go. The advantages of this laptop, it may not be quite as well cooled as the other two, but the advantages are it's much thinner, right? It's lighter, it's thinner, it's an all-metal chassis. Neither of these are all-metal, right? This has a metal even top too. It does have this beautiful ceramic white, glacial white. You can get it in a dark color too, but just like last year, I mean, it's a fantastic laptop. The fact that they've moved towards 2 SODIMM sticks is really good. So I think this is my personal favorite. I mean, that's not surprising. It was my favorite last year. It's potentially going to be my favorite laptop of the year. We'll have to see. We just started the year. So I think all of these three are great. They all exist in different spaces. If you got the money and you want the behemoth absolute performance, you go for the 7i Pro here. No brainer. If you don't want to spend quite as much and you're okay with 4060, 4070 level performance, get the 5 Pro here. And then if you want something that is like what I want, hybrid style laptop, it's going to be great for creator style use, professional style use. It's going to be great for gaming. It's going to be great for professional. It's going to be also capable of moving around with it. This has about the same thickness and weight and design form factor as a MacBook Pro 16-inch. So if you can move around with a MacBook Pro 16-inch, you can move around with this. It's just such a premium laptop. I'm willing to lose a tiny little bit of performance on the CPU to get such a thin, beautiful, sleek package here. So for me, my personal preference is this here, but I'm kind of a hybrid, right? I like laptops that appeal towards professional nature, but also have, you know, gaming performance as well and are relatively portable. So there you go. Hopefully this video is useful. I think they're all fantastic. And I think the one that you pick is going to have to depend on your use case.